the Genius Act passed into law, which actually did enable stablecoin rewards to happen. The banks had their own concerns, and we reached a good outcome in the Genius Act. And now the banks really are coming and trying to undermine the president's crypto agenda. I mean, these are the same banks that, debanked him and his family, right? And they want to come in and say that Americans should not be able to actually earn more money on their money. They're trying to protect their own profit margins, taking money out of the pockets of hardworking average Americans and putting it into the coffers of these big banks that are hitting record profits. And so our view is that there should be a level playing field where banks and crypto companies can lean into stablecoin legislation as an opportunity. And that includes paying rewards to Americans so that they can earn more money on their money.
Good morning, everybody. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of your favorite crypto news related channel. And today is going to be a very exciting episode, as I'm going to be taking you through some of the interesting things I found over the weekend in regards to the Clarity Act. Now, one of the things our listeners should understand is the war on crypto is ongoing. It has just moved behind the scenes. And what's happening here? JP Morgan, bunch of other major banks that we're going to go through today are working to shut down crypto through this regulatory bill that we're going to break down in the Clarity Act. But we also have a pro-crypto lobby in Brad Garlinghouse, in Donald Trump, and many of the other pro-crypto representatives like Brian Armstrong here from Coinbase that are working to bring in pro-crypto friendly regulation inside the United States so people like us can be in control of our money when it's all said and done. Now, I'd be lying to you guys if I said I wasn't a little bit concerned about the future of digital assets after deep diving the Clarity Act this weekend, but there is optimism on the horizon as there are still good actors fighting for this industry and working to get us positive crypto regulation passed inside the United States. Now, one of the things you guys should also understand as we go through today's content, there is a war going on behind the scenes between representatives from Cardano and Charles Hoskinson and Brad Garlinghouse. Somebody said Ab's got a perm. No perm necessary, guys, but we do already have 1,000 live listeners here joining us. If you're excited, you enjoy this content, smash that like button, throw your comments in chat, and I want to hear from you guys to kick off today's episode. One's in chat if you want the Clarity Act to be passed. Two's in chat if you're done with this anti-crypto regulation, you think that the banks are just working to shut down the industry. I'd love to hear you guys. What are some of your thoughts as we get into today's episode? Now, this is going to be a major week for Ripple. This is going to be a major week for Brad Garlinghouse because Brad is going to be speaking at the World Economic Forum event set to take place this Wednesday, January 21st. Brad Garlinghouse is going to be on stage in Davos breaking down what he believes to be the future of tokenized assets. But I found this piece of information over the weekend, and I thought our listeners would appreciate it. The U.S. House at Davos 2026 includes sponsorships from Microsoft, Pfizer, Ripple, and Hedera. Is this what you want to see as an XRP investor? Because again, I'm pretty sure a lot of our listeners, we're not major fans of the World Economic Forum, but these are the powerful rooms that we're going to need to be in order to have our stake in the future of finance. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword. You're seeing Ripple work with these large companies that maybe they have a nefarious reputation, but these are the most influential companies in the world right now. And as we go through the show today, you're going to understand this tweet really well. JP Morgan went to war with President Trump and Ripple. Now, both will be speaking at Davos this week. So if you guys are optimistic, let me know. If you're pessimistic, I want to hear that as well. I want to hear your rationale for if you believe the Clarity Act should be passed or should they shut down this regulation because it's just going to hurt people like ourselves in the long run. Now, if you didn't catch the episode last week, you're going to see this 30-second clip from Brad Garlinghouse. This got a lot of attention, and this sent Charles Hoskinson over the edge when it came to his rant throughout this weekend. So here's 30 seconds of Brad talking about the Clarity Act. Then we'll get into some of the other people in the industry who disagree with Brad. Let's hear the clip.
Clarity is always better than chaos, and the industry needs clarity. Perfection, I think, in my experience, is the market structure bill that's pending in the banking committee, is it perfect? No, certainly not. But is it better than nothing? Absolutely. And I think we need to continue to work constructively with Washington to get, and because you iterate what is already sitting in front of the banking committee to make it better, but we shouldn't give up now.
So what's interesting, guys, is that I was doing some research over the weekend, and my thought was you get the Clarity Act passed, and you can figure out the nuances later on. But actually, the standard for the industry is when they bring in new regulation inside the United States, it's very difficult to make changes thereafter. So that's why people like Brian Armstrong, and as I'm going to show you, Charles Hoskinson, it's so important that we have these important players advocating for the industry. If for some reason people like ourselves get the short end of the stick here in the Clarity Act, we're really not going to have an opportunity for change. And this is what I love. Bent Builder, great comment here. Under the current crypto, the CFTC is a subordinate to the SEC. That's uncertainty, not for the nature of XRP, but for those who get the last word. And this is what's really scary about the Clarity Act, guys, is that if the Clarity Act gets passed in its current form, all digital assets will be launched as securities. And then we're going to have to vouch for the SEC to say, hey, this asset is so big now, it's considered a commodity. That is not what we want. We don't believe these digital assets are securities to begin with. I know many of the people in our live chat understand these are commodities. These are blockchain protocols, and they shouldn't be regulated in the same way as orange groves were back in 1933. That's what the whole point of the Ripple lawsuit was. We had to spend $200 million. And I say we, I should say Ripple. Ripple had to spend $200 million just to prove they're innocent and be able to operate here inside the US. So I can see why Brad Garlinghouse, who's working hand in hand with the Trump administration, would say, let's get clarity passed. Let's bring in the Wall Street companies, and then we can figure out the nuances thereafter. Here's the problem. That benefits the big companies like Ripple, like Kraken. That may even end up benefiting a Coinbase, as you guys are going to see by the end of the episode. But who gets the short end of the stick in that deal? Well, it's me. It's you. It's the thousands of people out there who don't have millions of dollars in the banking system and don't have access to institutional custody. We're not going to be able to earn a yield on our digital assets. Imagine a situation where 20 years from now, all the banking interest is being consumed by JP Morgan, by Goldman Sachs, by Fidelity, the exact same way that our banking system works today. Think about that. What happens in a typical JP Morgan savings account? You're going to get about 10 basis points. That means 0.1% yield on the average account. They're making 4.5%, even 5% interest on the money that's supposedly yours. And that's the big debate that's being had here in the Clarity Act. Let me know some of your thoughts, chat. We're going to start diving into the brand new content, the brand new videos. We already got 1,635 live listeners, almost 1,000 watching on YouTube. If you're enjoying today's content, smash the like, subscribe to the channel. I've got a long form update I'm going to show you guys later on. I think I'm going to release it around 5:30, breaking down the specifics of the Clarity Act, but we're going to get into a lot of that right now. We did already pass 250 likes. The goal for today, can we reach 700 during the show? I absolutely think it's possible, but let's get into some of the dystopian reality clips that our listeners have probably heard about throughout the weekend. This is Charles Hoskinson talking about the Clarity Act, but let's open up with his criticism of Brad Garlinghouse. Now, Jungle Inc. put this out. Charles Hoskinson crashes out and attacked Brad Garlinghouse. What did Charles do when people like Ripple had to fight for their existence? He hid in irrelevance, said Jungle Inc. Not important enough to sue. How much money did Charles put up for the lobbying? Or did he just buy a random ranch in Lambo? Now, here's the thing. People are being really critical of Charles Hoskinson here, but I'm going to take the opposite approach because I think what Charles is doing is trying to protect the small guy, but we can debate that after the clip. Let me know some of your thoughts, chat. We're going to play this and break it down. Here it is.
And you still got people like Brad saying, well, it's not perfect, but we just got to get something, it's better than no clarity. Hand it to the same people who sued us. Hand it to the same people who put us out of business, who subpoenaed us, who put us in jail. That's better? That's what we fought for? That's what we voted for? And tell me, how do we change it? Like we changed the Securities Exchange Act of 1933. 93 years later, have we been able to change it? No. You pass it, you own it forever. Sorry, Brad. It's not better than chaos. Take the chaos and fight for what's right. Fight for integrity. I didn't sign up to hand the fucking revolution to 15 banks. To live in a world where everything is a custodial wallet, every transaction is KYC'd, everything is mutable and reversible, can be frozen at a whim when that number comes stamped on my forehead. I signed up for freedom.
I mean, guys, I got to admit, the energy is a little bit off the charts. It might be slightly performative on the side of Charles Hoskinson, but I want to hear from you, chat, as I get into this. One's in chat if you agree with Charles. Twos in chat if you disagree. I'm really interested to hear what is the opinion of our community, because originally I was thinking much like this, right? He's delusional. If he didn't think the banks weren't going to take over, that was my exact take. So shout out to this guy, Planet. We've been saying that on this channel for a long time. And I know if Johnny Krypto was here during this episode, he would share that same sentiment and say, Charles, how could you think that the banks weren't going to take their piece of the crypto industry? Now, Charles' rebuttal might be, I thought they were going to get a piece. I didn't think they were going to get total control. So that's kind of the big debate that's being had here. If the banks get to control the yield on stablecoins and get to control the yield on what is a security through the SEC's regulation, well, that's going to put new projects at a severe disadvantage. There's a lot of people out there who agree. There's a lot of people out there who disagree. It seems like the chat, it's probably 60-40 in terms of 60% of people agree with Charles, 40% of people disagree with Charles. But I would say this. When I think about what Charles Hoskinson is doing is I think his intentions are correct. And our listeners should probably watch this next clip where Charles Hoskinson warns the crypto industry. He's the only defense, that the crypto industry is the only defense against a dystopian hellscape. This is one of our things our listeners know. We don't want centralized digital currencies. We don't want social credit scores. We don't want to have our assets controlled by third parties like JP Morgan. And the reason for that is we saw what that would be during the Biden administration. They debanked President Trump. Coinbase kicked XRP off the platform. And this is the one thing that I do find very hypocritical about the Charles Hoskinson and Coinbase narrative. Just looking at this thing objectively and saying, hey, I'm a small guy. I'm a participant in the industry. What do I see from the sidelines? Well, what do I see is Charles, Coinbase, all these other major players, where the hell were they in 2021 when everybody was delisting XRP and accusing Ripple of offering an unregistered security? They were silent, they were on the sidelines, and they were unwilling to get involved because they were afraid they were going to be attacked as well. Now they know under this pro-crypto administration, Charles Hoskinson has the opportunity to be very, very, someone said 60-40, don't clown your own audience. Not sure what you mean, but here's the truth. What Charles Hoskinson is saying here is that he had the opportunity to protect the industry back in 2021 when Biden was leading this war on crypto and all these major players were on the sidelines. But now they know that they're not going to be prosecuted by the federal government because it's a pro-crypto landscape. They're more than okay sharing these opinions. And at the end of the day, what Charles Hoskinson has to say on his Twitter or his YouTube isn't going to affect whether this bill is passed or not. Money talks, words not doing a lot in this space right now. So that's the reason that I think this. Guys, people are saying I call BS on 60-40. A lot of people agree with Charles, guys. I'm not kidding. More like 80-20. Oh, they think it was the other way. I gotcha. More like 80-20 in the chat. And again, I'm just going kind of objectively. But what we're going through during today's show is this. If the Clarity Act gets passed with anti-crypto regulation, meaning people like ourselves kind of getting screwed, we're not going to have an opportunity to fix this in the short term. And that's what Charles gets into in this next clip, guys. We got over 2,300 people here. If you're enjoying this content, smash that like. Johnny Krypto just joined us in the background. So we're going to have Johnny Krypto joining this show very, very soon. But let's get into this clip from Charles and then we'll break it down.
Here's the brass tacks about what's at stake. You got AI, you got tech oligarchies, and you got your entire life connected to this guy right here. Tracks everything you do, goes along with you everywhere you go. And you have outsourced everything to these tech oligarchs. And with AI, they will know every single thing about you. And they're going to put a number on your head right here, just like the number of the beast. And your entire experience as a human being is going to be based on whether that number is higher and that number is low. That is the system you're sleepwalking into as you complain about paying your car payment and your bills and all your other stuff. That's the system you're sleepwalking into. Do you really want to live in a world where every single thing you say, think, and do is monitored? Do you really want to live in a world where your entire value as a human being is a number that an artificial intelligence agent has stamped on you? Because that's what you have with the legacy financial system. And no one is going to save you. The whole reason our industry exists, with its avarice, its chaos, its stupidity, its meme coins, and its bullshit, is because it's the only thing humanity has invented to avoid that dystopian hellscape of a future. That's it. That's the whole reason it exists.
And again, this is a take that I don't necessarily agree with, Johnny, because we're kind of breaking down the nuances of the Clarity Act here. But the truth is, guys, what Charles Hoskinson is saying is kind of the inverse of the truth. The entire purpose of Bitcoin originally was to be anti-bank, but as this industry has evolved, this is the exact technology that will be used to bring in a social credit score, to bring in a centralized digital currency. So I'm not necessarily sure I even agree with that take, but what I do agree with that Charles had to say is that it's almost like we're sleepwalking into a dystopian reality because the financial system is so difficult. People are desperate for an opportunity, and unknowingly, we're walking into a space where we're losing control of our finances. We're giving power, more power, to people like JP Morgan, more power to Goldman Sachs, BlackRock, Fidelity. And the reason for that is we're desperate for an opportunity. Americans are hurting more than ever. And I feel like people like ourselves, even Johnny Krypto, are searching for that escape where we can look at the market and say, where is the greatest opportunity to preserve our wealth? Digital assets are number one on the list. It was real estate for the boomers. It was the S&P for the millennials. It is going to be digital assets for us, whatever generation I am. I don't even remember what generation they call us. And so I agree with the take that Charles is sharing where he's trying to protect the industry. The part where I disagree, Johnny, is where I think it's not I don't think that Monero is going to dominate the industry for all those in the know, right? I don't think this is going to be dominated by privacy coins because people just don't understand the value of that yet. There's a huge educational curve that we're in the process of going through. I do want to give a big thank you to Seven Dennis here for the $5 dono. He said, Ripple is a bank. If banks lose exclusivity on yield, fractional reserve banking will be destroyed and global markets will be destroyed. Johnny, I agree with this. And here's my take before I kick it to you. JP Morgan is giving the average savings account 10 basis points, maybe 11. That is 0.1% of what's in there. You know how much they're earning on that? They are earning 4.5% on average. So when you ask yourself, why are they fighting so hard against giving up yield dominance? $25 billion alone was generated by JP Morgan, just one bank, when it came to the yield from savings. So $25 billion per year is at stake here. And that's why the biggest companies on the planet are willing to go to war over the Clarity Act. And I think it's why, Johnny, people like Brad Garlinghouse are saying, let's get this Clarity Act passed and figure out the nuances later on. But I want to share your take. We'll get into some more crypto content later on, guys. We did just pass 2,700 live listeners. If you're enjoying this content, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel because you're going to get an update every single day. But Johnny, Clarity is rolling out before our very eyes. Give me some of your thoughts on the matter.
Yeah, first of all, let me just say good morning to all the crypto maniacs out there. We love and appreciate you guys for showing up every single day. There's a lot to unpack there. There's so many places I can go in it, but the reality is, listen, I'll sum it up like this. At the end of the day, it's already happening, folks. You already have a number. All of you, including me, we all have a number already on our head. It's called your FICO score, your credit score. And so it's really no different. It's just an expansion of kind of that concept a little bit further. I'm not going to lose sleep or get into the contention things with Charles in terms of the system that's coming. You can't look at it that way. It'll just depress you, right? What you got to look at it, you just say to yourself, hey, what can I do to put myself or my family in the best position to generate income and maybe change the projection or trajectory, I should say, of your financial wealth system. And that's how you have to look at it, Abs. At least that's how I'm looking at it. So at the end of the day, listen, I've told you, we've talked this many times. Banks are scared right now. There's a big threat. If I can put, if Coinbase can offer 4% for putting your money in, and the bank's only offering 1/10, where do you think people are going to put their money? They're going to go to Coinbase, and they aren't going to go to the bank, and then the bank can't go and let it out at 10x the number. So there's no question that banks are sitting there going, whoa, we got to slow this down. We got to change it. And so that's what this whole battle is right now. And Brad is right. At the end of the day, what we really need is some kind of rule, some kind of law, Clarity Act that passes out how this thing can be played out. Once we understand the rules, then this technology could actually start to be developed. This guy says he has no clue about what this platform is. The reality is, guys, what we're talking about is the back end of all these systems, of all these companies, the way they're going to operate, the way they're going to settle financial system, and then the way they're going to settle data as a whole, where everything's going to be tokenized and everything's going to be on a chain. And it's going to be easy and accessible. There's also good sides to this whole thing too, Abs. People can get paid on the same day. You can get your information much faster. It'll be validated. It will be almost unhackable. There's so many different. You don't want a 589 credit score. I can tell you that right now. Maybe a social score, but not a credit score. But so the reality is there's just going to be there's going to be a system that's going to be out there. You aren't going to do anything about it. None of us can change it. So the reality is you have to work within the constraints and confinements of it. So the way I look at it is that we need the clarity. That'll then bring out the ability for this technology to be innovated, right? And we can put it out there in the space. And then that's when we'll see hopefully that's when we'll start to see prices of this stuff take off. And it'll be primarily, I think, on speculation the first time. It's going to be 2 bumps, just like we show the chart all the time here. There's a speculative run and a utility run. Speculative run comes first and utility run comes later. And I think there's going to be opportunity abs in both times to make some good money if you play it right, if you have a profit plan, and if you're willing to execute and take and sell. And I know a lot of people like, I'm not selling. Okay, well, then you might miss out. But I'll tell you right now, I'm selling when the time is right.
Right. And guys, me and Johnny, we're not a monolith. We disagree on a lot of this stuff because, again, I actually disagree with the premise that he outlined where it's like, don't even worry about what happens from a regulatory standpoint. Just protect you and your family. That's kind of what Charles had to say in that clip. He's like, that is the issue with the crypto space right now, is that people are just searching for an opportunity and they're sleepwalking into a reality that they don't want to sign up for. They're thinking about 12, 15, maybe only 2, 3, 4 years ahead when they should be thinking about 10, 20 years ahead. And if we get a dangerous regulatory environment here in the United States, it's people like us that in the long run will be squeezed out of the profit that we deserve. We should be in control of our stablecoin yield. We should be in control of our finances in general. And if third parties like JPM get more control over the digital asset industry through the Clarity Act, in the long run, it will screw over people like ourselves. So it is a legitimate concern that I had. And I had a lot of time to kind of read up on the Clarity Act during my flight last night. We took a red eye back home from San Diego. We had the 6-hour flight. The truth is that when you read through the Clarity Act, guys, it is not about us. Let me make that absolutely clear. And I know Johnny understands this. I'm sure thousands of people out there do as well. But if you haven't figured this out yet, the Clarity Act is about making the banks more powerful. It's not about giving us control over our finances, which is why we all got into crypto. It's why we hold XRP. Maybe it's even why you hold Bitcoin, even though Bitcoin has kind of annexed itself from that conversation. But I do want to hear from you all. We're close to 1,400 live listeners. We're going to show you all an update out of Eleanor Terrett, right? Because this is an interesting one. The White House is considering pulling its support for the crypto market structure bill entirely if Coinbase does not come back to the table with a yield agreement that satisfies the banks and gets everyone to a deal. Now, this is a source close to the Trump administration that told Eleanor Terrett. The White House is said to be furious, you're reading that correctly, with Coinbase's unilateral action on Wednesday, which it apparently was not notified of in advance, calling it a rug pull against the White House and the rest of the industry. The White House does not believe that one company speaks for the entire industry, a source claimed. This is President Trump's bill at the end of the day, not Brian Armstrong. If there's anything you don't want to do, you do not want to get into an ego contest with President Trump. You'll lose every single time, guys. The evidence is stacked against us. But here's what Brian Armstrong had to say about this reporting. He said, in general, I love your reports, Eleanor Terrett, but this is not accurate. The White House has been super constructive here. They did ask to see if we could figure out a deal with the banks, which we're currently working on. Actually, we've been cooking up some good ideas on how we can help community banks specifically with this bill, since that's what this is about, the community banks, right? More coming soon. Well, Eleanor Terrett then followed up this tweet saying, actually, my reports were accurate. And we're going to get into that as well. But it just goes to show, guys, that there is an active battle being fought. The Charles Hoskinsons against the Brad Garlinghouse, the JP Morgans against the Donald Trumps. And for all of our listeners who are unaware, this week there's a major event happening in Davos, the World Economic Forum event, where Ripple will be attending and speaking. And Brad Garlinghouse actually liked my tweet this morning because I announced that he would be on the All In podcast later this week. Brad Garlinghouse went on to confirm he will be on the All In podcast tomorrow morning, 10:30 a.m. Eastern time. So check that out, guys. But here's what Eleanor had to say. My reporting was airtight and accurate. That's what Eleanor had to say. You also just cited the central point of my story as correct, that the White House asked Coinbase to go secure a deal on yield. My reporting is that the White House support now appears to be contingent on that outcome. So really, really interesting, guys. I want to hear your thoughts once again. One's in chat if you want clarity, if you want the Clarity Act to be passed. Two's in chat if you don't want it to be passed because you think it's an attack on the retail investor. Johnny, I know you had some thoughts on this one. Kick it back to me right after.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we talked about this, I think, on the weekend. We talked about this last week on the show. I told you this was going to be a painful process. There was going to be both sides going back and forth. And where we're going to end up is neither side is going to be happy. And that's where we get a bill that could possibly get passed, where it's maybe, they want freedom to be able to do 4 or 5% yield. Maybe you're going to get 1 or 2. The banks aren't going to be happy with that. Coinbase ain't going to be happy with it, but both sides will some agree and we'll get something and we'll get it passed. Because if we don't, the other outcome, the other side is we don't get a bill at all. And then this thing staggers for who knows? Maybe Charles is right. Maybe we don't see this thing happen again until 2029. Do you want to risk that? So I think the reality is, you say
Here's what's weird, Johnny. I'm gonna kick it right back to you. Is that it's so weird because we have to root for a bill to be passed, and the bill, quite frankly, isn't what ideally we would want. So it's not a win-win. It's not necessarily a lose-lose, but it's this weird situation where guys like us who want this industry to grow, we understand that the Clarity Act is going to bring in the speculators, going to bring in new money. But if it diminishes our yield in the long run, it's literally going to hurt us. It's like we're poking a hole in our boat. So,
my friend, this is how politics has been for hundreds of years. I mean, was in politics, and I can tell you it's always been that way. The reason why you're surprised and everybody's surprised now is because nobody pays attention. Nobody cares. Nobody reads the bills. Nobody pays attention until it affects them. And the reason why you're realizing that now is because you care about this, right? You have a passion for it. So you're reading the bill and you're going, holy crap, this thing ain't what I want. Exactly. That's usually what it is. And this is exactly remember I keep telling you about this is the process of making the sausage. It's ugly. Well, this is it, my friend. It's ugly. And yes, you actually have to root for a bill. I voted for bills I didn't want, because I knew if I didn't vote for it, it was going to get killed. We were going to get nothing, and nothing was worse than getting something. And that's where we're at here. And for me, it's just another day in the park. No surprise. That's how it's going to be. So you got to ask yourself and say, do I want nothing or do I want 50%? Because that's usually your choice. That's about what it's going to be. And for me right now, when I look at where we are today, and look at where we are with this industry, and look at where it came from the prior administration, and knowing that if we don't get something passed and we get to a new administration that has a different feel of this industry, or better yet, it's the pockets are lined by a different group, you may never get it. So to me, that's why maybe you and I disagree. I'll take something that's only 50% good, because I know if we don't get that, we may not get nothing, and it could be a lot longer. And I don't think any of us want to wait. All it's going to do is delay this industry and delay some of the benefits that come with it. So,
and here's what else I've realized, guys, is that what's kind of happening here with the Clarity Act is that it's becoming an extension of the industry. And Johnny, I think you've recognized this as well, is that what's really happening here is that the banks are gaining more control over the yield-bearing products in digital assets. And why are yield-bearing products so important? That's where people store their money. But the saving grace for people like ourselves, I know we got 3,500 people. You guys are early investors in the digital asset space. And what's great about that is that if the Clarity Act gets passed, just to play as the optimist here, it's going to increase digital asset prices significantly over the next couple of years, because people are going to come in speculating on which of these assets is most profitable. Now, the downside is that we're handing over crypto to the exact same people who tried to destroy the industry just 2 years ago. So it really is a double-edged sword. There's no.
But what have we said? We literally have said this whole industry, this sandbox that we were playing in, is going to get confiscated by the big boys. Have I not been saying that for years? Well, you're witnessing it right now as you speak. You're witnessing the grabbing of the sandbox by the big boy. It was going to happen, Abs. It's how it works, unfortunately. So they're going to take it over. They're going to own it, and we're going to get to play in it, and we're all going to make a lot of money from it. So it's still going to be a win-win in the end. It's just not going to be according to the way we were hoping it was going to go, but it's going to go the way that, because again, at the end of the day, like you just said, those yield-bearing interest, that's what draws money into the bank, so banks can then go and lend it out at 10x and make a ton of money. You think they want to lose the ability for money to come in? So it's going to be, I'll be honest with you, I'm very, very interested. You're going to laugh. I'm actually encouraged at what you just posted, where Brian said, we're working on some ideas. We're cooking up some good things that maybe could work. Let me tell you how important that is. We all got to hope that he can come up, or they can come up with something that the banks are willing to move forward with, because they are going to be the ones that are going to fight this thing at all costs. So if he can find a happy medium and we can get this thing over the goal line, it's going to be good for the whole industry in the long run. So
I like this comment as well. It said, let's not forget that Trump has to sign the Clarity Act at the end of the day. And that's why President Trump has said time and time again that it is about Trump's bill. This isn't about Coinbase. That's the most important quote at the end of this Eleanor Terra tweet. This is President Trump's bill at the end of the day, not Brian Armstrong. We have to remember that.
yeah,
And I do want to give a big thank you. Hold on, Johnny. I do want to give a big thank you to Richard Mayer here. He said, congratulations to the New England Patriots. Unfortunately, my team lost to the Broncos, but I want the Patriots to beat the cheating Broncos. Major thank you to Richard for the.
Wait, how about the cheating refs? Maybe the refs, not so much the Broncos.
Yeah.
The refs.
I do want to give a big thank you, guys. But here's the truth. As we get into this content, I want to hear from our chat. One's in chat if you want the Clarity Act to be passed. Two's in chat if you don't want it to be passed. I think there's a great logic to be had on both sides from the standpoint of ideally, with this bill would be designed in a completely different way. But we have to play with the cards that we've been dealt. We're looking at the hand that we have, and now we have to decide, do we want Clarity Act passed with the banks controlling yield-bearing products in 2026? Or do we want this bill kicked down the road until the end of the Trump administration when possibly, guys, who knows what we could be like, what America could be like by 2028? It could be Gavin Newsom. It could be JD Vance. It could be Marco Rubio. It could be some other Democratic candidate that we have no idea about. And then we're kind of resetting the board on, are we still pro-crypto? Do we still have a crypto czar? And if the SEC and the banks control this industry, that may not be ideal either. So this really isn't some big win. It's not a very easy answer for anybody out there who's sitting there saying it's so obvious. It's not obvious, guys. It's not obvious what the industry should do. We're kind of at a fork in the road where we're going to have to decide regulation in 2026 with concessions or wait until 2029 when we possibly have a Democratic leader and maybe even an anti-crypto candidate in the White House. We just don't know. But we are 32 minutes into the show, guys. If you're enjoying today's content, smash that like button. The goal for today, can we pass 700 likes on the episode? We're already at 531. So I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to the best community in all of crypto. And like I've said time and time again, this is a major week for Ripple. This is a major week for Trump, as both are going to be speaking in Davos this week. I believe President Trump speaks today, but this is an account that's had some really interesting correct predictions. Now, supposedly it's a connection to the Bank of Japan. That is unconfirmed. But what I've seen with this account in particular is a lot of times they put things out. A few weeks later, we look back and we go, wow, they were spot on. Well, they commented this: we're heading to Davos. This year's meeting will change everything. Keep an eye on Ripple and XRP. And like I shared earlier, Brad Garlinghouse is going to be speaking on stage on January 21st about tokenization at the Davos event. But Johnny, one of the most interesting things that I found over the weekend was the U.S. House sponsors for Davos this year. There was only 2 crypto projects on the list: Ripple and Hedera. 2 projects that we talk about almost every single day on this channel. And it's great to see the most powerful conglomerate in the World Economic Forum, inviting them to the event. Now, again, I asked our listeners because I said, it's Microsoft, it's Pfizer, it's AI companies, and then of course it's Ripple and Hedera. That's a double-edged sword in and of itself, right? Maybe some of these companies have a nefarious reputation, but they're the most influential companies in the industry today. So that it's like, we have to be in these rooms to accomplish the goals that we're trying to here. And HBAR and XRP are the only 2 digital assets on the list. That goes to show who's got a competitive advantage, who's got a hearsay in the most important rooms, not just in America, but in Davos as well. But Johnny, any quick reactions to this one? I do have some other content we're going to get into, but I thought this was relevant. Hedera and XRP, the only 2 crypto projects sponsored out of the US.
I'm actually a little surprised by that, Abs. I really thought we'd see a couple more bigger players there. This is kind of where things happen. This is where you want to be, a seat at the table. But again, you know how it works, right? It's relationships. It's rubbing elbows. It's saying hi. It's making those contacts and connections. And this is where you want to be to do those. And for me, I'm excited to see that Ripple's there, of course, and they're usually always there. And Hedera, no surprise, they're big players as well. So you got some of the big players there. So I am really surprised. I thought there'd be some other ones there. But getting back to the other point about Trump, you know, you said it's Trump's bill. It is, but it isn't. Trump doesn't want a Clarity Act that the crypto industry isn't supportive. The last thing he wants is to pass a bill and then have the industry bashing him the whole time. We all know Trump and we know his ego, and he does not want that. That's why he says we will pull this thing. What do you think? Trump's smart. He's literally threatening the industry, going, guys, you guys are the ones that came to me that said you want this bill. Well, I'm not going to do it if you guys don't figure it out. That's literally what he's doing. He's literally saying, you want this bill? Okay, well, go figure it out and bring me something that I can sign. Because if it comes to me and the banks don't want it, or Coinbase and all the crypto is just going to pull back out of it, then I'm not going to sign it and you ain't going to get it. So he's basically putting the pressure back on them to go figure it out. And that's why you saw Brian come back and say, okay, we got to go figure this thing out. And that's actually good news. It's good that Brian isn't walking away, but trying to figure a solution. We do need that, because Trump is not going to sign this bill without some of the crypto people supporting it and being behind it.
Johnny, I do want to play a clip of another clip of Charles Hoskinson here, because he talks about Brad Garlinghouse a lot in this, and I know you haven't seen it. So we're going to get a live reaction here from Johnny Krypto. If you guys are enjoying this content, smash that like button. We're 35 minutes into the program. We will keep rocking and rolling. We're only 100 likes away from passing 700 on the episode. Shout out to you guys. Let me know your thoughts in chat. We're going to incorporate it into the conversation. This is Charles Hoskinson being very critical of Brad Garlinghouse.
And you still got people like Brad saying, well, it's not perfect, but we just got to get something, it's better than no clarity. Handed to the same people who sued us. Handed to the same people who put us out of business, who subpoenaed us, who put us in jail. That's better? That's what we fought for? That's what we voted for? And tell me, how do we change it? Like we changed the Securities Exchange Act of 1933. 93 years later, have we been able to change it? No. You pass it, you own it forever. Sorry, Brad. It's not better than chaos. Take the chaos and fight for what's right. Fight for integrity. I didn't sign up to hand the fucking revolution to 15 banks. To live in a world where everything is a custodial wallet, every transaction is KYC'd, everything is mutable and reversible, can be frozen at a whim when that number comes stamped on my forehead. I signed up for freedom.
So, Johnny, I've already responded. I'm going to give you an objective chance to respond, because I feel like this is a great rebuttal to what you had said prior. You prioritize your family, and Charles says you sleepwalk into a dystopian reality. I'd like to hear your rebuttal to that.
Well, listen, first of all, I get where Charles is coming from. I feel his frustration. We all do. I mean, I get it. I know exactly what I know what he's saying. I can feel it. And I'm actually sure that all the other guys feel the same way. The Ripples and the Brian Armstrongs. But the other people, where the difference here is, they understand at the end of the day, if you want to move the needle forward, you need to find a happy medium and go and move forward. Or you could do what Charles says. Fight this thing, and let me tell you right now, you know what's going to happen? You're going to lose. You ain't going to get it, and the banks ain't going to give a shit, because they're making the $25 billion a year. So the banks are happy either way. They don't, because this threatens them. It doesn't do anything for them, or it can, but only if it's what they want. So the bottom line is it's going to be a happy medium, or you get nothing. So I get where Brad is coming from, and I get the other guys are like, hey, let's fight. And the reality is, Charles is probably right. Whatever they end up passing, maybe that will be the only thing we get. But it will be way better than trying to live off a court ruling on an orange grove of deciding what a security is and what a security isn't, based on something that was invented 50 years, a ruling that was made 50 years before this technology was even invented. That's not progress at all. So like I said earlier, I'm sticking to what I said before. You either can have half progress or you get zero progress. Pick your poison. Which one do you want? I'll take the 50% progress. It's better than living in 1933.
It's a great point, Johnny. And I think that a lot of our listeners probably feel the same way, where it's like, guys, this industry has been suppressed and attacked and unfairly labeled as nefarious and criminal for so long that we're desperate for opportunity. We're desperate for this regulation, because we know when this regulation is passed, so much money is coming into this space, trillions of dollars in the next 3 to 5 years. It's going to get parabolic for the projects that are legitimate. And I feel like maybe some of this is personal for Charles, guys, because maybe Charles was kept out of the important conversations and wasn't invited into the rooms that he had wanted to be in. And now he's kind of lashing out at some of the industry executives that were involved in that conversation.
I don't think he is, Abs. I think Charles truly when he set this thing up, I think he really felt there was going to be a chance to break away from the banks and to have true, real free money. And if you think about it, from 2009 to today, You pretty much like the industry was doing its own thing. People were using it. People were sending stuff. The banks didn't care. Nobody, they weren't involved. BlackRock wasn't involved, and nothing. And he probably kind of started to develop ideas like, hey, maybe this could really happen. Like, hey, this looks like abs. It could become a system. I think Charles started to believe it. And now when it came time to put rubber to the road and put the rules, he's looking and going, shit, we're going back to what we were before. And he's pissed about it. And I don't blame him. Because remember, we talked about it's all about expectations. And Charles had it. And Charles isn't wrong. I'm not going to sit here and say that what he's fighting for isn't wrong. All I'm saying is we're never getting a full bill that's going to be completely, where the banks aren't going to support. It's just not going to happen. It's not going to, they have too much power. So again, you got to kind of meet in the middle. I think that's where his frustration is coming from. But I hope for Charles' sake, he kind of comes to terms with there's going to be a happy medium, and I hope he gets behind it and supports it. He will. Here's what's going to happen. He'll go down fighting tooth and nail, right? Abs, write this out. He'll go down fighting tooth and nail against it. Okay. Something, because the other guys will work it. Brad will be working on it. Coinbase will work it. They'll help get something over the goal line. And then ultimately, at the end of the day, Cardano is going to benefit from having a 50% better bill than versus a 0% bill. And then he'll kind of forget about all this over time. You watch. What? Let's keep an eye on Charles 3 years from now, and let's see what he's saying. If he's still arguing that the bill sucks, or is he happy that the industry has moved forward and there's a ton of money flooding into it? Let's see how he reacts 2 years from now.
Absolutely. And I agree with this, right? This is a good take. He said, now, Abs, I remember a long time ago, you guys used to say it's better to focus on what you can change, not what you can't. A lot of things are going to happen like digital IDs. I absolutely agree. And right, we're here on this channel because we think we've recognized an opportunity that's going to give our listeners a chance to preserve their wealth and expand their wealth as we head into the digital era of finance. That's why I'm in XRP, right? I'm not in XRP because I agree with every single thing they're doing. I'm not in XRP because I think this is the most ideal situation for humanity. I'm in XRP because I recognize this is what's happening, whether I like it or not. And I may as well profit off this technology and put the people I care about in a situation where we have a little bit of freedom, right? And I think thousands of our listeners feel the exact same way, guys. Let me know if you're enjoying this content. Smash that like button. We're only 50 likes away from passing 700. Big thank you, guys. And I want to give you this live update here out of Davos at the World Economic Forum event. This is Coinbase CEO Brian Armstrong stating the 3 main goals for this week. Number 1, talk to world leaders about economic freedom and how crypto can update their financial systems. Number 2, continue the push for a market structure bill, market structure legislation. And number 3, keep pushing for tokenization to democratize access to capital markets. The future of finance is here, and it's time it's built for the people. Now, we can debate that, but let's let it play.
Hey, y'all. I'm here in Davos at the World Economic Forum. I want to give you a quick update. 3 main goals for the week. Number 1, I'm talking to different world about economic freedom and how crypto can update their financial system. Number 2, we're going to continue to work on.
Well, for some reason, the audio's kind of trash, but I read the points there, guys, for you all. The big objectives here: bring in clarity, tokenization, and how can we expand blockchain's reach outside the United States? Well, this is big for several reasons, Johnny. And the number one thing that I keep going back to, Brad Garlinghouse will be speaking at the World Economic Forum this Wednesday. And what is he talking about? The tokenization of real world assets. Name another blockchain product that's going to have their CEO on stage. Doesn't exist. This again goes to show there was literally an active war between the anti-crypto banks and the pro-crypto politicians. Donald Trump and Ripple on one side, JP Morgan and Gary Gensler on the other. And for the time being, we are in a winning inning, I would say. We have control of the House. We have a pro-crypto president. But if the House swings after this election cycle in 2026, it goes back to what Charles said. It could take another 3 years before crypto is passed. And there was a comment in chat about people are acting like if we don't get it this year, we can just get it next year. That's not the case. If we don't get crypto regulation the first 2 quarters of 2026, we're probably not going to get it until the next president is elected all the way in 2029. Johnny, any comments on that?
And that assumes that the president elected in 2029 is pro-crypto apps. We're making a massive, massive assumption there. If he isn't, you might be waiting to 2033. So let me tell you something, guys. When you say, that's why you may say, well, Johnny, why do you want? That's why I'd rather have 50% of something than nothing, Abs, because if we don't get it in these next 2 quarters, who knows when we're going to get it and what we're going to get. And it may only be 25% good if another administration is in here that's not pro-crypto. So no, I think it's crazy to even think that these guys, and I think Brian, the Bryans and the Ripples and the Brads of the world know, like, we got to get this done now. We need to get this done while we have a pro-crypto president in place, and he has control of the House and Senate. Because once they lose control, as you just said it, all bets are off. You know, everybody's complaining at a $2 XRP, and they're complaining that it took too long to get here. Well, imagine waiting 5 more years before we get Clarity Act. What do you think your crypto account looks going to look like then? So everybody who's sitting there, and I see in the chats, there's a couple people. Most people voted 1 and want to take the bill and get it passed. There were a few people that put 2s in there. Let me tell you, those 2s, I don't know if you know what you're voting for, but if you say, no, don't pass this, you're saying, okay, I'm fine waiting another 3, 4, 5, 6 years, potentially, for a Clarity Act bill. And I'm okay watching my account go down for the next 6 years because this industry will just stagger because there won't be any excitement behind it. Retail and then won't come in. And big money won't get behind it, and you're just going to be sitting flat. And I don't know if people really understand that, but that's kind of the other side of the coin, and I don't want no side of that coin. So let's get this damn thing passed. And the good news is they're all sitting together now at the WEF, and my guess is that's where they're going to figure this thing out. They're going to talk about it. They're going to come up with something that neither side is going to like, but hopefully, Abs, I think you said, what, the 27th is when Congress is coming together again to look at the bill, which is perfect timing. So this week they'll all be spending together time to figure something out. Hopefully they come to a solution so that next week they can put that in the bill and we get this thing on the way to the next round to get this thing finally approved.
And guys, we did just get major announcement out of the New York Stock Exchange, which just confirmed it is going on chain 24/7. The New York Stock Exchange plans on launching 24/7 US stock trading through the tokenization of real world assets. This is another narrative that we're spot on with, Johnny. The tokenization of everything is already underway. Stocks and bonds being put on chain next year. This is another development with the Clarity Act where you can sit there and go, I can identify $2, $3, maybe even $5 trillion that's going to be tokenized in the next year. Well, even if it doesn't get put on our favorite blockchains, the amount of liquidity that brings into blockchain ecosystems, it's off the charts. It's incompatible for what's going on today. And let me just remind our listeners of this as well. This is a really interesting stat. In the last 12 months, silver added $3.9 trillion to its market cap. That is 1.2x the entire crypto market cap today. If an asset like silver can add 3.9 trillion, is it really crazy to think that an asset like crypto could add 2.53 trillion after the passing of the Clarity Act? I think not, Johnny. And these are the developments that's going to bring in those trillions of dollars that we're referencing. This combined with the ETFs, combined with the stable coins, it's the perfect storm if we can get pro-crypto regulation here. Now, let me just give you the details. I'll kick it to Johnny Krypto. This will facilitate 24/7 trading of US listed equities and ETFs. It will allow for fractionalized share trading, meaning you can share a fraction of an Apple stock, and will offer immediate settlement via tokenized capital. This is the moment we've been waiting for. These are the real world utility kind of use cases that are going to drive sustainable cash into the ecosystem. I want to hit a couple of these guys. We are 48 minutes into the program. We got over 4,500 live listeners here. If you're enjoying this content, smash that like button, especially if you're watching on YouTube, as we are very close to reaching that 700 like goal. If the Clarity Act passes, but banks influence it to keep the banking yield very low, what would stop people from moving their money to a higher yield crypto or DeFi platforms instead of traditional banks? Well, if these higher yield protocols are shut down, there's not going to be a whole lot of opportunities outside of the centralized banking system. They are annexing their competition. They are working to suppress their competition. I know I showed you guys this video last week, but here's 15 seconds of that. Here's the answer to your question.
Well, I think the high level principle here is that we can't really have banks come in and try to kill their competition.
Boom. There you go. We can't have banks come in, kill their competition, and shut down the opportunity for regular, smaller profiles to earn and generate a yield. I do want to give a big thank you to Ben Benny and a thank you for your membership, my friend. Shout out to you. Seven Dennis said, this is only about yield on stablecoins, not staking. Great point. Absolutely. But stablecoin yield is going to become really important when you talk about savings accounts. Like Johnny, we've had private conversations about this. Do we want to keep this in a stablecoin? Do we want to put it in dividends? Do we want to use a business high yield savings account? Everybody's going to have these chats. And when the Fed lowers rates, and that interest rate goes from 5% to 3% to 2.5%, a lot less people are going to keep their money in a savings account. A lot more people are going to look for risk on opportunities. I know you had a comment. Floor is yours.
Oh, I mean, this. So what this comment says and what the comments before that said was correct. He asked, what's to stop people from going into higher yield DeFi platforms to get earnings? There isn't nothing except the complexity of it. That's the difference. Like, yes, there will be staking options, and yes, those yields will be higher. People could do that. But let me ask you a question. So I was at dinner last night with a friend of mine, and we were trying to do staking on his cell phone, and we couldn't get it to work. It's more difficult than just putting money in an exchange, and boom, you instantly earn 4%. Right? Boomers will figure that out. It's pretty easy. You can calculate. But then to go stake it somewhere, you got to move it from an exchange to a wallet. Then you got to put it in a wallet to a validator. And those are the steps that is much more complicated, Abs. And that's not something a boomer is going to feel comfortable with. And so that's the risk, is there will be a small percentage of people that will do exactly what you said. They'll go find a higher one. But that's not what Coinbase is looking for. That's not what the industry is looking for. The industry is saying, hey, I want to draw people to my platform. I want them to have money in my exchange, and then I want them to go trade. Well, how's Coinbase going to do that if they're limited in what yield they can offer? That is the crux of the problem right there, folks. So yes, they can find other things, but that isn't what Coinbase is fighting for, or what the industry is fighting for. They want to be able to be on an equal playing ground and be able to offer whatever interest rate they want on the stable coins, because they know at the end of the day, people are going to trade in and out of stable coins, right? Ab, stable coins is the way, it's the on and off ramp of how you get in and out of crypto. You're going to move your cash into it, buy a stable coin, then you're going to buy something, it's going to go up, you're going to sell it, and you're going to sell it back into a stable coin. And they don't want them moving it off their platform. And if I could earn 4 or 5%, why would I? I'm going to leave it there until I buy the next thing. So I totally get what they're trying to do. And that, my friend, is the challenge that the industry is trying to. That's the big battle that's going on right now. Not so much, finding those small high yields on DeFi platforms. Those will be out there. Those aren't going to go away. But that's not what this is about. So don't confuse the situation.
Good point, Johnny. And I do want to give a big thank you to Johnny Krypto for joining us today, guys. Also, big thank you to every single person who sends a live donation. We love and appreciate you guys. Crypto Geek with the $5 commented, opinion on ETFs being locked in the future could eventually cause a supply shock. Zach Rector is saying it's an amazing, almost at 1% locked in a short period of time. I think it'll be a pillar. It'll be like any other facet of this market that's taking XRP off the short-term traders, putting it in the hands of long-term investors. I think what this person is really asking is, are the ETFs alone going to cause a supply shock? The answer is no, not through ETFs alone, but through all of these different catalysts, through all this new demand, we should get some exciting price action. It won't just be the ETFs, because like I figured out after interviewing Matt Hogan, after interviewing Canary Capital, is that a lot of this demand goes right to the OTC desks, and it kind of puts the retail investor at a disadvantage. The benefit of that is that given a long enough period of time, these OTC desks distribute their supply, and then they start offering a higher price on XRP. And that's when we get real price appreciation for some of our favorite assets. Big thank you to Crypto Geek for that $5. This person said, wouldn't XRP be fine because we have legal clarity? XRP would be fine right now, even if the Clarity Act doesn't get passed, because we do have legal clarity, right? But what this is going to do is it's going to give us rules of the road. While XRP is the one asset that they know it's not a security, it's a commodity. We went through the federal lawsuit. The one thing that we don't have is exactly how companies can leverage assets without being persecuted by the federal government. That is what the Clarity Act is really focused on. Johnny, any comments on that?
Well, let me just kind of do more an analogy. Okay, so let's say XRP's passed. Now imagine you had just one road that went from New York to California, and that's it. It was just one road in the whole country. Nowhere else. There were no roads anywhere else on the planet except for that one road. How many cars do you think are going to get bought? You think people in Texas are going to buy a car when the road is right? So my point being is, guys, having one road approved isn't going to drive in institutional money. Institutions aren't going to go, oh, XRP's got clarity, so we're all going to dump our money in. No, it's not going to work that way. They want clarity on how the whole blockchain industry and how it all, and then all that money is going to come flooding in. So yeah, as an XRP holder, we always hold on to that thing like, yeah, it's great. Okay, you're right. It's awesome. And we have some clarity and some money will come in. But if we want that big pool of money, folks, the Clarity Act is the key that unlocks it. And you're not hearing me just say that anymore. Now you're hearing the whole industry say it. You're hearing the big players talk about why we need it. So yes, XRP will be fine. But you got to look at what's the game we want here. We want to see our assets go up. And we want to see XRP go up. Well, the more money that comes into the pool, the pile of money that's here, the higher chance, percentage probability we have of it going up. So for me, that's why the Clarity Act is so important and why I want to see it passed. And I don't hang my hat on, well, XRP has clarity. Well, that's okay. But we need the whole industry to have clarity to get all of the money coming in. Does that make sense?
Definitely does, guys. And I do think that, Johnny, you make a bunch of great points there, Johnny. And I'm looking this up in the background kind of as you're breaking this down. Hedera's leadership confirms that enterprise adoption is ready to sweep the industry. These are announcements that we're just starting to get out of the World Economic Forum event. Another project I want our listeners to keep an eye on is Quant Networks. Now, this is something that I know people who were here last cycle know a lot about Quant. It's been undervalued. It's been underappreciated. And the reason is their leadership team has dropped the ball when it comes to marketing, but they are also involved in a lot of the World Economic Forum events. So I thought it was worthy of note. You got Ripple, you got Hedera, and Quant Networks also involved in some of the World Economic Forum events that we're going to be discussing. But we are 55 minutes into the program for today. If you enjoyed today's content, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and I want to give a huge thank you as we did pass 725 likes on the episode. That is thanks to you guys, the best community in all of crypto. But what do we know for sure, Johnny? The Coinbase, the Ripples, these are the influential voices right now behind the scenes when it comes to the digital asset space. And both those companies are working to get the Clarity Act passed in 2026. If you guys enjoyed this content, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, go out, touch some grass, hug some family, enjoy the day. Because again, crypto, so much is happening this week. And we're going to be live tomorrow morning breaking down the World Economic Forum events that we discussed. The question we asked you guys, does XRP reach $12 in 2026? 70% say yes, 30% say no. That's out of 1,325 votes on today's user poll. We love you guys. We appreciate you all. And we'll see you in the next one.
You're going to be so proud of your president, and I don't care about that. But you are going to be so proud of your country because we're going to turn it around and we're going to start winning again. We're going to win so much. We're going to win at every level. We're going to win economically. We're going to win with the economy. We're going to win with military. We're going to win with healthcare and for our veterans. We're going to win with every single facet. We're going to win so much, you may even get tired of winning. And you'll say, please, please, it's too much winning. We can't take it anymore. Mr. President, it's too much. And I'll say, no, it isn't. We have to keep winning. We have to win more. See, the bottom line is, well, you don't know much about crypto. You know nothing about nothing. You fake news.
So if you're looking to do the same strategies that we implement here on Good Evening Crypto, I would advise everybody sign up for Merlin and click on the ITrust Capital link below. Now, why did these two ideas play off one another? Merlin is going to allow our listeners to understand where they should be taking profit in this market, and ITrust is going to allow our listeners to take that profit tax-free through an IRA product. Now, that's not the best part about this. We are giving new clients a $100 sign-up bonus using the promo code GEC9. So I would encourage everybody, click on the link below the video, use promo code GEC9, and set yourself up for success during this crypto bull market. I love this comment here. This guy said, Abs and Johnny, why aren't you at Davos? Because, my friend, we are middle-class Americans. We ain't
we could be there. You know what? We'd be like knocking out the door. Let us in. They'd be like, no, you can't come in, my friend.
The challenge, as you know well, is the U.S. has had this very hostile. The Biden administration has been waging a war on crypto, and I think an unlawful war. Courts have